What's going on, everyone? Dr. Todd from the Moving Out Chiropractor, and this is a really special episode. First off, it's episode number 295. I have Danny on here, as you have gotten to know and love, and then we got a new face on here, which is Paul, aka Pissed Off Paul, because just look at him. He looks angry, doesn't he? It's kind of just a fun name we gave him. He's never pissed off at all. He's the most easygoing dude ever. Not the newest on our team, but a newer on our team. And he brings a really fun dynamic to the clinic and to Move Now University. Because if you're part of the team, you're part of Move Now University, because we have seminars here and you get to meet our team and learn from them directly. So we're going to interview Paul and ask him some fun questions and talk about some of our systems and exercise. So again, episode 295. Check out this intro and we'll be right back. Here's what so many chiropractors have been searching for. How can we expand our clinical reach by finally addressing more than just the segmental component with our patients, but at the same time, not feel like we are selling out our chiropractic principles? The reality is our patients count on us to guide them. And when it comes to results, we must also address their posture and their movement. The verdict is out. Patients have spoken, and this is what they want and what they need, focusing on functional movement and corrective exercise. So how do we practice in a way where our community is engaged, excited, and seeking us out because of this comprehensive, results-based approach? That's the goal we've all been searching for, and this podcast will show you how. My name is Dr. Todd Pickman, and welcome to the Move Now Chiropractor. All right, Paul, it's the first time you heard that intro. What do you think about that?
I've heard it before because I've listened to your podcast before.
Boom.
Yeah.
Good. Everyone, this is Paul. Let's officially introduce Paul. So Paul, you've been to the clinic for, what were you saying? How long now?
About 3 to 4 months.
3 to 4 months. Okay. So I apologize ahead of time for his god awful audio. He's just talking through a phone right now. He's not as high tech as Danny and I, who have our microphones set up. To Paul's defense, he literally had 5 minutes of prep time knowing he was going to be on this podcast today.
Yeah.
And great attitude and willingness to be on camera and be part of the podcast. He's like, sure, let's do it. So now he's on. So Paul, tell the audience a little bit about your history in chiropractic and just who you are, and just shoot from the hip and fill us in. Why are you here?
All righty. So about a year and a few months ago, I was living in Florida and I moved here with my girlfriend, and I ended up doing personal training, and I was doing that for quite a while in Florida, but it's getting to a point where I was like, okay, I want to do something more. I want to try to help more. I want to do something different, but still be helping people to get to their goals in some way. And so that's where I researched chiropractic care, and I was looking around, and my first spot that I found was near Boise somewhere. I'm not even entirely sure of the whole area so far, and then after that, I was there for about almost 8-9 months. And then that's when I found here, and the whole experience so far, even the 3-4 months, has been like super instructive. So much knowledge has been thrown at me, but it's all stuff I want to learn about anyway, because I'm super interested in learning how the body works, how the body progresses into improving itself without having invasive care needed, just doing it very holistically. I think that's a good approach. I think that should be the first approach whenever you're doing anything, is
Sure.
check your body, see what you can do, and then from there, doing what you can do in order to help it. But that is pretty much my story up until this point. As far as things that I do outside of here, I like to work out. I love to work out. I work out every day if I can. I like to hang out with my friends and family.
Wait, hold on real quick. Just pause. Quick double bicep. There we go. So Paul, well, but just for everyone there who's listening, if you're listening, you can't see Paul, but if you're watching, you can see Paul. And Paul is a pretty stacked dude. So he's muscular, he's fit, he's in good shape, he eats healthy, he exercises, practices what he preaches, and he's just a machine. He comes in, he gets his work done, he's willing to help out wherever he can. I mean, I think like a takeaway for our doctors and our team who's watching this, when you're saying, what kind of person am I trying to hire for exercise or for traction or whatever? everything Paul just said, it's who he is, right? He wants to learn more about how to help the human body and fix the human body. That's his why. That drives him. So you don't have to teach that. So if you bring someone else in who's like not health conscious, who's eating Doritos and drinking diet soda and eating at McDonald's and sitting on the couch watching Netflix and all this sort of stuff, to get them to the point where they're inspired, like how Paul already came in, that's a pretty big leap, right? Not to say it can't happen, but do you think it's easier to take someone like that and teach them traction and exercise, or someone like Paul and teach them traction and exercise? And then who's going to be more inspirational to patients and who's going to be more self-motivated internally? And I would say hands down, Paul is going to be, right? So like that's the kind of person that you're looking for in this position. Okay. So anyway, sorry, I might have cut you off.
Yeah, no, like if you don't have a passion or even an interest in any of this stuff, then you're not going to like convey to people who are coming in here that don't even have any semblance of just exercise, really, because that's why they're coming here. And if you have a good attitude, that's going to convey to them that they should have a good attitude while doing this, which is then going to further their progress even more compared to someone who has a bad attitude coming in here. So I feel like that's a good point. As long as you have someone that's super motivated into exercise or even into just helping people, I feel like that can be just the main driver for really helping people get to where they would like to be compared to doing it by themselves and only getting so far.
Awesome. Cool. Danny, you have any thoughts or questions for Paul?
Questions for Paul. You worked in an office that was similar to ours. So when you came into our office, what was your initial thoughts? And then I know you spend hours and hours and hours watching all the videos that Dr. Todd has created. Do you have any feedback on those?
I would say the difference between here and there is, while being here, it's been a huge difference because here's like there's so much more room, there's so much more things going on, there's so much more implements being used to help people just get further into their journey than if they didn't have it. Or like, for example, the whole iron neck or the 3D treadmill implements that a lot of other offices don't have, that get used, that people can't normally do at other offices. So it just helps them further their progress. But as far as the website, I think all of it's super informational. Like you said, I've been watching hours and hours and hours. I've been literally, from the videos that I would watch, I would incorporate them that same day into exercises that I would think people who have certain dysfunctions would need. Like, for example, the whole internal rotation of your shoulder or even valgus knee, all of those things that people, I feel like in other offices sometimes don't think about, that it's like these little things that if you were to correct, they can make the whole structure in itself, which if we're talking about the structure as the body, just much stronger than if you didn't have it. So it's kind of like going off the whole adage, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if we can make every link strong, then the structure is going to be pretty much unstoppable. And that's how we want to do it. We want to get to the point where we're pain-free and then we're stable, and then we can live our life normal instead of in pain.
Cool. So look, I wanted to pull this up. Sorry, I was jumping off camera, but Paul did a good job explaining some of this stuff. So Paul, this is the site that you're on when you're watching videos, right? You log in to Moving Out University and start going through stuff, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So everyone out there, you ask, how do we train our staff? Well, most of the time when I come into the clinic and it's not on patient hours, our middle room back over there. Hey, can you just flash the camera over into that middle room, or maybe just kind of like show what we're talking about so people can visualize where you're sitting? So it's right outside of the exercise area. So he's walking into this middle room area.
Right.
And so it's a storage room. We call it the Bat Cave. And there's a workstation back there. We didn't used to have a workstation back there back in the day. We decided to add a computer in there. It was a smart thing to do because we made a little office out of it. So give you some ideas there for you guys doctors. You know, you say, hey, I don't have rooms to do this sort of thing. Throw a computer in the storage room even. That can be a little breakaway office for staff to train in. Paul's in there watching videos, not just on the exercise library, which right here inside of Move Now University, we have our exercise library, which mirrors the same exercise library that patients get access to inside of the 12-week transformation. So quick little background on that. Our patients get access to a membership site inside of Move Now University. We give you the ability to clone this membership site and then also give patients access to this. We made these videos on behalf of Move Now University, not on behalf of our clinic, Gonsteads Spine and Wellness. So they are very much universal in the sense that you can put your logo on it, you can use it, you can put a customized video up top welcoming your patients, you can put your staff in up over here, and then your patients get access to a ton of cool information plus the exercise library. So this exercise library over here, there's clickable buttons that then teach various exercises. So we filmed out all these videos of how-tos, you know, some of them are 4 minutes, some are 2 minutes. And the stuff that Paul's going through and basically training on any, you know, downtime where he doesn't have other tasks to do, because Paul keeps himself busy. You know, I mean, he wants to maximize his time at the clinic. He wants to be learning stuff. What he's doing is he's gone through all this stuff. He's gone through these videos of why I move well, the history of exercise, what is functional movement, what's dysfunctional fitness, corrective exercise versus functional exercise. Like, how far are you on these videos, Paul? Have you watched all of them?
I like to refresh myself over like the functional series, but yeah, pretty much watch most of them. But yeah.
Okay. So the functional series, let's see. It's been a while since I clicked into here. Functional series is, oh, that's more in the actual corrective exercise. No, it's in measuring movement. Yeah. And then, oh, like, was it in?
Wait, go to corrective exercises.
Corrective exercise, yep.
So if you go to like any of them, so for example, if you go to the squat dysfunction.
Oh, you're talking about the bottom, the functional series. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. And again, the purpose of this episode isn't really to dive into all the specifics of this, but because I'm bringing it up, I'll just give some context to it, to the audience that's seeing this. So patients get assigned exercises based on a movement assessment and based on dysfunctions that are identified by the doctor. So someone could have a thoracic hyperkyphosis. That's a postural structural issue. They could have a thoracic mobility issue. That's a functional issue. We could say we're going to work on D2, which is thoracic dysfunction. So now we have this whole list of exercises that go in a very specific order of operations that follow the best evidence-based research on physical rehabilitation, which is you want to first get someone moving. So you want to introduce mobility exercises. What does that mean? Foam roll, double lacrosse ball, things that are going to basically desensitize tissue, help physically elongate tissue, and get get tissue moving. Okay, like pressure in tissue can help, you know, take trigger points, which is spots of muscle tissue that's adhered, you know, has problems with blood supply in that area, gets gummed up, whether it's a fascial adhesion or what exactly. Let's not get into that whole conversation right now, but we have this global mobility thing that we do. Globally, we're trying to just get tissue desensitized, get some movement going, foam roll. Next thing, we're gonna be more pointed at it. So we're gonna use things like double cross ball, J cane, neck trigger point tool, things that are gonna get in very specifically. Then we have some extensibility stuff. So now we're going to take the person through more of like a range of motion or almost like a stretching type of exercise after we've desensitized the tissue and warmed everything up with mobility stuff. Then we're going to do stability and patterning. This is more or less retraining movement patterns in the brain, getting motor control going, which is a big part of restoring movement. And then this last part, it's got a big old kettlebell on it. It says loading. Now we're going to load it with a functional exercise that incorporates weight and resistance. We use kettlebells. It's one of the most basic tools, but one of the best tools that relies more on technique and learning how to move than the equipment itself. So it's low tech equipment, fairly inexpensive. Patients can also duplicate this at home and get kettlebells. And now they have this knowledge base that we've taught them on how to use it. Okay. And then the functional series. Okay. Now I know we're really getting into the nitty gritty here. The functional series is now this other topic where we say, okay, let's say that we're not trying to necessarily target thoracic dysfunction by itself, like thoracic mobility issues itself in the thoracic spine. But let's say someone has a pattern that's a common pattern that encompasses multiple bodily regions together, like upper cross syndrome, upper cross series. That's a concept taught by Vladimir Yanda, which was one of the first, I don't know, biomechanists. I'm not sure what his exact title was, but he's a very famous guy early on in the functional studies, Vladimir Yanda. And he talked about upper cross and lower cross. Upper cross, as a lot of you know, is this pattern where the head is forward, shoulders are rounded, a lot of times thoracic hyperkyphosis, a lot of times posterior thoracic translation. So we just take that and we say, okay, what overall tissues or what exercises or things should be done kind of in a chain, in a series, in a chronological order to work this stuff out. And it puts together a whole, 10, 15-minute sequence that a patient can follow. That's what the functional series is. So this upper crossed one, and you can see here on the graphic, or if you can see here, I'll make it a little bigger, is it says D2 for general mobility. That means D2 is dysfunction 2. And we all just happen to know that that's thoracic because this is the world that we're in as far as, working as an exercise therapist or doctor in the Move Now systems. We know this like the back of our hand. D1 is what, Paul? Cervical. Yeah. No brainer. Easy, right? So now you have focus mobility. Go D1, D2. What's D3?
Shoulder dysfunction.
That's right. Shoulder. And then D2 is thoracic again. So this is just showing like where you would find these exercise protocols in the D1 through D8 dysfunctional category. Then we have the soft tissue extensibility. Okay, you find one from D1, D2, D3. What we just did was we strung together the most effective exercises in a sequence that still follows the same evidence-based proven approach of going through sequentially mobility, soft tissue extensibility, stability, and patterning. Okay. And it pulls it all the way through. Now, that's what this functional series is. And then what we did is we made a video for the doctors, for the staff, and patients alike. So mind you, this right here is inside of the doctor training portal, Move Now University. I'm going to skip over to the 12-week transformation, which is what our Move Now doctors get access to clone this, modify it for your clinic, and give your patients access to it. Your patients have access to the same exercise library. And at the bottom of their exercise library, it's identical to the one inside of Move Now University. And the upper cross series button, it's a button, is right there too. You click on it, and there's me and the man behind the myth, Trainer Tony. Go back to previous podcast episodes. We had Trainer Tony here in town after years of not seeing him. He was on some podcasts, fun memories we went through, and we run through upper cross functional series. And so we actually run through this and we note where you find each exercise and we kind of show it to you real time. Okay. So anyway, that's just explaining in a maybe not so brief way what Paul was talking about. Okay. So Paul, any verbiage or anything you picked up on my explanation there? Or is that pretty much how you understand it and how you explain it?
Yeah, no, I would say it was pretty good explanation. I would think a lot of this stuff, you'd be surprised how much doing all the stretching and pattern reinforcement and loading, how much that's going to help them in traction. Because I've had people that when they first started doing traction, they necessarily didn't have the most comfortable time, and traction isn't comfortable in general, but we started incorporating things like in the functional series that he was talking about, Dr. Todd, that when we incorporated it that same day, they didn't feel that same pull in their neck that they did this previous time after doing just stretching in that area.
Yeah,
It
it's
looks
huge.
a little bit different, but yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, huge. And that's a question that people ask us too, is they're like, well, how does a patient go through this whole process, like on each visit? And, I mean, how do you coordinate where they're at? Well, there are systems behind this. We have lots of systems that tries to maximize a patient's time so that when they're in the clinic, they're always using their time wisely. They're doing something. We don't like having to make a patient go wait up at the front desk because they're done with their exercise or done with their traction and they're waiting to get adjusted by me or Dr. Zach. We try to time it where it doesn't happen like that. Does it happen like that every once in a while? Yeah, sure it does. Because, we're juggling multiple different variables in the clinic. But ideally, just like Paul is saying here, you don't want to take someone coming into the clinic, walk in the front door and throw them straight in traction because they haven't warmed up any of the tissues yet, right? So like ideally what we do is we do lots of other stuff first and traction happens afterwards. And then perfectly ideally, we end with functional movement stuff at the very end. That's actually like the most ideal situation, is that you restore mobility, you decrease pain, you do all these awesome things for that person's visit, and then you reinforce all that good newfound range of motion and decrease in pain with doing a loaded functional movement, like some kind of kettlebell exercise that the patient's already been instructed. They already know how to do it properly. And now they're doing it with perfect form and their body feels good. And they walk out of the clinic feeling awesome and functioning great. And now you're taking that, that gain that you just achieved with them and making it last as long as possible so that you don't fall into I come in, I get adjusted, I feel good for a day, and then I go back to normal. I go back to hurting or I go back to dysfunction. I'm trying not to focus just on pain, because that's not what we do as chiropractors. It's not just to get people out of pain. It's obviously to restore and enhance nerve system function, which affects overall health. Absolutely. But when someone's in pain, they can't move very well. They can't function very well. And that's like top of mind goal for them, is to reduce pain so they can do all of that stuff. So like, you can't just ignore that pain is not a big deal for this person. So it has to be mentioned and talked about, but it's not the main focus. And oftentimes pain goes away pretty quick on some of these patients. And then we can get down and start doing all the corrective stuff, which is cool. All right. Feedback from you guys. I want to just take a breath and stop yapping so much and give you guys a chance to talk.
Paul.
Yeah. Paul, Danny.
Say no. I was gonna lead in with something and I completely forgot what I was gonna say. Goodness.
No, and it's fine. If I'm talking, you got something to say, just jump right in and interrupt me. I'm just trying to add some clarification, because it's like our audience that listens to these podcasts and watches this. Sometimes this is the first video they've ever watched from us, and sometimes they've been following us for years, and sometimes they're members, sometimes they're not members. So it's kind of a vast audience. But I think even a member that's been doing this on a daily basis is going to pick up a little verbiage and things from this. And someone who's brand new, this is like you just handed them 100-pound bowling ball. You're like, hey, hang on to this. Oh my gosh, you have all these systems, you do all this stuff. All I do in my clinic is adjustment only. How could I ever get to this point? Mm-hmm. Just like eating an elephant, one step at a time, one bite at a time. Right. And Danny is the one that helps teach you how to eat the elephant. She teaches your whole staff how to eat the elephant too. And she's, for those of you who don't know Danny, she's our office manager. She's our doctor support. And while she may not be able to sit down and tell you every reason we do all the exercise and all the clinical stuff, she definitely has ideas on it and understands the concepts. She knows all of our systems perfectly, which is so important, because the systems is what keeps all this stuff together. Because if not, you just have this whole hodgepodge of information, but you're like, okay, how do you take what Paul knows and his passion? How do you take what I know and my passion, and Emily and Dr. Zach, and everyone, and how do you make this appealing to a patient? And how do you get it into their brain and then get them to stick with it so you actually change their life and not just see them for 12 weeks, have it go in one ear, out the other, and have them never think about it or do it again. Because if we do that, that's really not fulfilling our purpose of what we're doing in chiropractic. Our purpose is to change people's lives. The purpose of the 12-week transformation is to literally transform someone. That's why we named it that. It wasn't just to sound cool. It was because gyms do this transformation thing where they can transform someone aesthetically, like you lose body fat, you gain muscle. That's what actually inspired me to even build this 12-week transformation, because I'm like, man, people gravitate towards that so well. They love this before and after thing, like having, tangible, measurable improvement. And so I'm thinking, okay, how do you do that in chiropractic? How do you do that in this thing that I know is the most important thing for human health? Starting is making sure that your nervous system's functioning properly. Obviously not the only important thing. There's obviously diet and stress and sleep and exercise and all those different things come into play. But if your nervous system isn't working properly, if it's not actually sending and receiving information to said tissue or organ or cell, then how worthwhile is all that other stuff to begin with? It's like, it's only going to be as worthwhile as the operating system that allows it to all happen, which is your nervous system. So that's why we're so serious about fixing posture and movement and subluxation and doing really, I think, true principled chiropractic, but applying really specific rehab to it and not just doing this like one size fits all generic stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Like, nothing is one size fits all. And that's one thing that I tell our members a lot too, is that, hey, this program isn't one size fits all, but that definitely applies to patients as well. And one of the really cool things that I like for the systems for our patients, the system for our office, system for the doctors, is it's always evolving. So it's not the same as it was when you first created this content. It's always evolving. We're always adding new things for the patient's progressions as far as their exercises and stuff within the office. It is constantly evolving throughout their care, which is some things I believe you are planning to train on with the staff later today after this podcast, is how we can progress and evolve with exercises with patients during their care. And then that also transforms into more evolution for our staff training as well.
Totally. Yeah. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today, is we're going to be evolving even further. We're going to figure out, all right, we do a really, really good job with a lot of stuff, but there's little tweaks and things that have kind of been on my mind for a while, and it's time to go back to the drawing board and create. I really enjoy creating and putting more content together. So I got to like brush off some of the cobwebs and make some more stuff. And so that's something that's going to happen until the end of time. It's like, for example, like Paul had mentioned, we just got the iron neck. Okay. I saw it before. Joe Rogan talked about it. Looks funny. It's a big old hat with a thing on it and it moves around. And a good buddy of mine, Dr. Ed LaCara, I don't know why I'm saying your name wrong, Ed. I've known you forever now because Ed's the one that introduced me to function movement. Danny, I think you froze. If you want to refresh your video real quick. You're frozen with your eyes closed. All right. But Dr. Ed is the one who essentially introduced me or told me like he's been using iron neck and it's been working really well for him. Let me see if I can spotlight. There we go. Okay. I'll put me on there while Danny fixes her video. So I talked to, I think, the CFO of Iron Neck 2 weeks ago, and we're building out something for all the Move Now doctors so that we can get really good pricing on it. And we can also make it available for our patients and get discounts for our patients so that if they want to get one to use for home care, like if they have a cervical instability, so this ties into some of the smart injury doctor stuff. This ties into personal injury work. Someone has cervical instability, excessive motion, ligament laxity, ligaments that are stretched or possibly torn. Well, it's tough to repair those ligaments chiropractically because it kind of is what it is, but you can build more stability and muscular control and strength around there. And that's going to give that person as much protection as you can prior to doing something more invasive like prolotherapy injections, PRP stem cell, or, a surgical fusion, which we're trying to avoid having to go invasive, especially that last option. So that's one of the things that we're evolving on. We're going to go through some iron neck protocols for instability. If someone has upper cervical instability, if they have more problems with rotation or head nod, whether it's more upper, like upper cervical, like skull atlas C2, or is it upper cervical instability and flexion extension? Like I want to get specific on this. So like Danny's saying, it's not a one size fits all thing. However, we have systems in place to make it easy enough so that you're not spending 30 minutes as the doctor mapping out a patient's protocol. Doesn't mean it's not super pinpoint specific. It's that we have such great systems in place. You can just be like, okay, this person needs to go D1, D2, D3, 7, 6. We're going to do 15, 18 visits of that. We're going to focus on sequence 1, warm up, and then we're also going to make sure that we prioritize posterior chain activation and they have upper cervical instability. So we're going to work through that. And, so it's like literally I can flag it that quick. And I just programmed out 12 weeks of exercise. Okay. Sorry if that snap was loud. Is that loud? I did that. I snapped and I looked and you're like, whoa. I'm not sure if that's what that was, Danny, or if you're reacting to something else. Okay. Don't snap into the mic. But that is the beauty, I think, of the systems. And just to shadow back on stuff we've talked about before, like I've practiced now for 20 years. I'm in my 20th year of practice. And we started doing exercise really in about 2015. Okay. So it's been about 8 years since we've done exercise in practice. That means I had 12 years in practice that I didn't really know anything about functional movement exercise. And over the last 8 years we've been doing it, been learning more, refining more. And it's really changed the way that I practice. And it's like, there's no way I could I couldn't go back to practicing any other way at this point. There's no way. I'd feel like I'm selling patients short,
Yeah.
So, let's see. Well, I'm looking at the time here. We're at 31 minutes. What are some good, I don't know, tips, tricks, things that you hear, Danny, as far as questions from doctors that maybe Paul can address a little bit from his perspective, or even from like a patient's perspective of their feedback, or any thoughts that you have, Paul, of something that you want to share? I don't know. What do you think?
Is there any common like pushback or anything like that from patients that you feel you encounter over and over again? When you're teaching exercises, talking about dysfunctions, functional movement, a lot of our Move Now members are always curious how their patients are going to react to these things being introduced to them, especially like existing members when they're trying to, be like, oh, now we're going to do a movement assessment and we're going to try all these things out on you. So what are some common, I guess, pushback may not be the right word, but what are some common things that you encounter over and over again that patients question when it comes to movement assessment, functional movements, or exercises, anything like that, Paul?
Yeah. Yes. Or do you find that it's not really that big of a deal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find for the most part that I don't have too many, I would say, maybe like the word could be objections to like what we do for exercise, because I explain it for the most part like, hey, we're going to be performing a few movements through different ranges of motion in order to see how your body reacts, to see if you have any pain, and then from there we can determine what's going to be the best route in order for you to get away from the pain, and then from there create more stability and then strengthen the areas so you don't have this issue anymore. And for the most part, people are like, awesome, that's what I want. It's like, okay, let's do it.
Awesome.
And just to further on that, that's the thing, Danny, that I think is surprising for doctors that haven't done this before. It's their own headspace of thinking that people are going to have all these objections. It's that all the gyms and all the other stuff out there for the last several years has done all the marketing for us already to already impress upon the public that exercise is important and exercise is good, right? And people already, for the most part, think, hey, like physical therapy is good stuff. And like my medical doctors recommend physical therapy, so it must be really good. Chiropractic, I've heard some good and bad things about that. So sometimes the exercise component is what brings people in who might be more hesitant to chiropractic, introduces them to chiropractic, gets them on board for the whole package of understanding how we're addressing segment, posture, and movement altogether, right? Most patients I've found as well, especially when I'm talking to them about their care recommendations prior to them even starting this and getting an exercise, they usually don't really have objections. And if they do, it's pretty easy to overcome them, because it's like their objection might be, well, you know, if I go through all this traction, what is it that's going to keep my spine in place? Is it just going to go backwards again? Right. And my answer is, well, if you have this pretty much like deformity in your spine, if you have a massive thoracic hyperkyphosis, maybe you have compression fractures in there as well that's caused the spine to deform and be in that shape. The fact of the matter is, this is going to be a lifelong battle of you fighting against gravity. Gravity is going to want that thing to collapse and be weak. And every single day you have an option. Do you get stronger, or do you get weaker, or do you stay the same? Right. And it's like, Paul obviously knows what his choice is in that battle. You know, he talks about, hey, I'm exercising all the time, working out all the time, eating healthy all the time. Dude, if you just do that until you're 100 years old and you never stop, you're never that 100-year-old guy that's all hunched over that can barely move, because your baseline has always been consistent. So what are we really trying to do for patients? We're trying to change their baseline, meet them where they're at, and get them just a little bit better and improve them a little bit more, right? And so, yeah, there's always different personality types and different patients that we have in front of us. And so we have to understand our audience. And then we have to say, where are you at? Where are your goals? How far can we get you in the next several weeks? And we kind of baby step them into it so they can look back, 12 weeks later and be like, man, I used to be there. I've already come a long way so far. Danny, you froze again? Oh, no, you didn't.
I was going to say no.
I thought you froze. It had your eyes closed for like 10 seconds, which I don't think you closed.
Oh, I was looking down. Jenna sent a message.
Gotcha.
I was looking at it really quick.
Gotcha. Okay. Jenna, we're doing a podcast right now. Okay. All right. Sorry. I thought you froze and I just didn't want you to be frozen with your eyes closed.
No, sorry. No,
right,
it's just my face. All
right. No problem. It's just my face. All right. All right. So anyway, it's long little rant or talking point on this, but patients usually don't object. And in the cases where someone's like super athletic and super into exercise, like just yesterday, for example, we did a day 4, which is where we're like introducing someone to their home care and their exercises and really digging deep with them on that one newer patient of ours, Paul. And, he's pretty active and athletic and does all kinds of exercise stuff. And so I had Jenna send a message in chat, which is like our communication, just to say, hey, heads up, this patient, athletic, this, very particular about things. Nice guy, like super nice guy, but just very much like no nonsense kind of guy. Hey, I'm going to do this because I can see it's going to be beneficial for me. Let's really just make sure we're speaking to who he is as an individual. And, I saw Paul out there instructing him on stuff. I know he's back in exercise. Well, he comes into the room with me after he's been exposed to you guys for a little bit. And so I know I didn't have a chance to talk to you guys yesterday, give you feedback, but you obviously did an amazing job, because he comes into the room with me and I'm like, so how's everything going today? Getting a crash course and all this. He's like, it's awesome. I'm loving it. And he's like pumped, he's like super pumped. So obviously he was engaged. Paul did a good job at connecting with him. Emily did. Whoever else interacted with him, he had a great experience and he's on board. He's like, hey, I'm doing the right thing. And I'm choosing these people to lead me. So he's already a more exceptional person. And so now he has to see us as leaders for him. Because if he doesn't see that, if he sees inconsistencies with us, if he sees, uncertainty with us, he's going to be like, am I in the right place? Dr. Todd, spoke this huge game and they have all these cool systems, but like, are they actually delivering? So when you can have the systems and you can deliver and the patient sees the value, that's awesome, because you need them to be on board with it for them to even go through the process to be able to get the results. Like, their headspace is the first thing that needs to be checked off before they're going to go through the program. If they don't go through the program, they're not going to get the results. If they doubt it from day one because of some slip up on our end, we now unfortunately could have tanked that whole process for the patient. So it's not for the sake of, word games or manipulation or, any of this sort of thing. It's being able to connect, develop trust and rapport so a person can choose us as leaders. I think that's probably one of the best things to like think about it as. And that's, I think, a cool thing and an empowering thing for your team as well. Paul shared, a bit briefly about him. Pretty simple dude, eats healthy, works out, wants to learn more about how to help people. That's pretty awesome. Imagine if everyone in the world had those characteristics. We'd have a completely different world, right? So that's Paul in a nutshell. I'm like, okay, great, Paul. Is there a way to clone and make 15 more of you? Great. Okay. All right. Let's take over. So it's cool for Paul, though, to be like, man, I am an expert in my role. I'm a leader in my role. And he goes home at night going, not only am I congruent in my own life, but I get to do something that matters. And that's huge, because like Paul could go work somewhere like typing at a computer, customer service for like T-Mobile or something, and maybe make the same amount of money or something, or who knows, maybe they're paying $100 an hour right now with the way the whole world is crazy. But at a certain point, you're doing customer service for T-Mobile. You're like, is this really satisfying? Is this, anyway, so those are some of my thoughts on this, just kind of digging a little bit more below the surface, maybe even answering the question, Danny, of like, how do you keep your team engaged? How do you keep your team wanting to stay on your team?
Yeah. Other than the fact that, we're just amazing, awesome people, but, the whole education thing and who wouldn't want to be a part of our team?
I think it's a pretty cool team.
Me too.
Hopefully Paul doesn't think I give him too hard of a time that I call him pissed off Paul, but that's just a thing, man. I just have nicknames for everyone. I couldn't come up with anything better for you. And it's partially because Paul just looks, like Paul has this thing where I come in, I go, hey, Paul, how's it going today? He goes, I'm doing okay. But it's like, Paul's okay is like, I'm fantastic, 15 out of 10, but he's just a no nonsense kind of guy. So it's like, he doesn't have to throw all the fluff in there. But I think people get it. Like he's, he has that balance of kind of serious, and it's just who you are. It's just his personality type. And it's fun because we have all these different personalities, like everyone has a good time with each other, I think. On a side note, I showed Dr. Zach yesterday that little picture I drew of him with that crazy V-neck. I don't know if I showed that. I showed him and he was cracking up, and it's like, hopefully some people can poke fun at me too, so they don't feel like I'm just picking on everyone. But which is a side note, Paul, if you ever do a Marco Polo with Dr. Zach when he's like at home on the weekend, you'll say, oh, this is cool, he's sending me a Marco Polo. And you'll say 2, I didn't realize he had that hairy of a chest. And 3, I didn't realize they made V-necks that low. That's basically that's like the process that you'll go through. Okay. And maybe 4, you'd be like, that'd look good if you had a gold chain.
I've seen Marco Polos from him, and that's like the first thing that popped in my head is like, why is his V-neck so low, and why is it
I actually asked him about that yesterday, and he's like, it's just more comfortable. And I'm like, okay, cool. And he was laughing about it, but he's probably crying inside. I don't know. Hopefully not. Hopefully not, Dr. Zach. I don't even know if Dr. Zach watches any of our podcasts. Dr. Zach needs to jump on one of these Dr. Zach, where are you? Next episode's Dr. Zach's jumping on. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be
Well,
fun.
so closing thoughts on this, guys. I think we've had enough fun for this episode, but closing thoughts. Paul, you're going to be here for Impact 11. It's coming up in April,
Yes.
right? So Paul's going to be here, right, Paul? You're going to be here, right?
Yeah, no, I'm going to be here.
Okay.
Am I getting a phone call from someone else? From who?
I don't know. It's in the way. I can't see.
Oh, and we got Emily. Emily, you want to poke your head in?
Hi, Emily.
Hi. Sorry, a phone call from someone else. That's why we were like, oh, what? But I know.
Gotcha, because they're doing Zoom on the phone right now. All right, so Emily and Paul are both going to be here for Impact, and so Paul and Emily both really, they do exercise and traction. Like they can be fairly interchangeable. Emily is more of our veteran in exercise just because she's been in the clinic longer. Paul brings obviously a different dynamic to exercise, personal training background, and you know, he's just trying to absorb as much as he can. So it's a fun team because you got Emily who's like quirky and says funny stuff, and she's our person in charge of our joke board in our adjusting room. And then, you know, you got Paul that's a bit more serious at times or comes across like that, but you know, can also smile and have a good time. And patients love that dynamic. I love the dynamic walking into the clinic. That's also maybe just like a little closing note too, just a little last thing to say. I can genuinely say everyone in the clinic, I absolutely love everyone's personalities, what they put into this soup of a family that we have in the clinic. You know, I'm happy every time I come into the clinic of seeing how our team interacts and how they work together. And I can't say that I've always felt that way. There was definitely times in the past where I would have maybe a person or two in the clinic that I just felt like wasn't a fantastic fit on the team. And in hindsight, I'm just like, man, I should have taken action sooner and built a better community for everyone else, and maybe said, you know, I'm going to invite you to exit the team and leave this island and try to find someone new to bring in that has better cohesion and better passion and just sharing in this whole thing that we do. Because, you know, everyone on our team, I feel like, is there for a purpose and really tries hard and does a good job. And, you know, I'm constantly getting compliments from patients as well. So those of you doctors that are out there that are like, man, I'm struggling, you know, this and that, go back and listen to some of the podcasts that Danny and I just did as far as being slow to hire and quick to fire as well. And, you know, so hopefully our team just stays with us forever until they're all 120 years old. That's the goal. So Paul's going to be like the world's oldest, you know, exercise therapist. Like he can move on and do something else, but he's going to like still work in the clinic. And same with Emily. Like in the future, they're going to be like, hey, I'm doing some other thing, but I still come in like 15 hours a week, work over at Gonsteads.
Say that, make that my life goal now for sure.
Yeah, that sounds like a good life goal. All right, guys. Well, any other closing thoughts on year end, and we'll round this episode out.
I was just gonna say, I think that regardless of the verbiage change between like someone who's like super experienced with exercise or not when they're coming in here, I think it's just all about the energy that you give off. And if you're confidently giving out these concepts that are getting to the point where they're making sense in their head, if they're experienced or not, and you're still giving them that good energy behind that, I feel like that's just the best way for a patient that was a little offset about the whole thing to be all in at that point. And I feel like if you can do that, I feel like that's just the best way in order to, you know, keep clients coming and then helping people get further to where they want to be.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Awesome. So be excited, have passion behind it, show that you care. Huge.
And all that starts with the training, the way that you train your staff. And because a lot of people come in and they don't really have a background in this. So training your staff, educating your staff on our why we do what we do. And then having them receive that and truly believe that to their core, it just automatically projects onto the patients that walk through the door, because we truly believe in everything that we do.
That's right. And I'm excited today to go through that training even more. So today we're doing some traction training, and we're going to go through and talk about some exercise protocols that we want to add, and then how to create some handouts and some different, there's systems we have to modify to make it easy for us to all communicate across to each other internally what we're doing, and then how do we communicate this to the patient. So you'll probably see some more training videos added in Move Now University soon. Like Danny said, it's always evolving, it's always updating, and that's the cool thing about being part of Move Now University is that it never just gets frozen in time. It's like the more we have to offer, the more we're going to incorporate this for our patients, but we're still going to follow the same main foundation of how this thing is set up.
Yep.
Okay. Until something better comes along. I mean, if something better comes along and you can show it to me, I'll be doing it. But right now, I know I'm biased, but I think our systems are the best thing to be able to deliver this to a patient. So
I was about to say, what I've seen in the past, you guys are like steps upon steps ahead, as well as just constantly incorporating more and more things that I haven't seen anywhere else. So I don't see that happening anytime soon.
awesome.
Hey, Paul, you're a part of the you guys. It's us.
Oh,
You're
us
a part
guy.
of that too. Us.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Us. Oh, because in his verbiage just right now, is what you're saying?
Yeah, he said you guys, and I said, hey, you're
Yeah.
a part of that. It's you too.
That's right.
Us.
That's right. And Paul is now officially on one of our podcasts, so we'll have to have him come back in the future. So everyone that's watching this, or listening to it, wherever you listen to podcasts, comment, tell, say hi to Paul or something, and I'll go and show him that there was a comment on there that said, "Hey, Paul, happy to have you on." Comment below if you're watching this on YouTube. Comment on Facebook if you see it on Facebook. And Paul, thanks for stepping away from doing what you're doing. You probably stepped away from going to lunch early and getting in those gains. So I'll let you go feed your muscles, and Danny and I are going to wrap up so we can physically come over to the clinic and we can do our in-person training. So we will see you guys soon. I'm going to run the outro. Everyone that's listening too, if you haven't already, you can watch and buy Emily. Thanks for jumping in, Emily, and showing your face. Lastly, there's two calls to action, actually 3 calls to action. One is go to impact.movenowu.com, impact.movenowu.com to see more about our upcoming Impact event. Even if you're a non-member and you want to come out and join us, there's an opportunity to do that. So check that out. Second one is we have a demo of our program. It's demo.movenowu.com. You can see a 30-minute behind the scenes video of us going through how the platform works, get a better idea of what's going on. And you can connect with us, primarily Danny, and she can talk with you and figure out if this is going to be a good fit for your clinic and how to make that happen if you're interested. And then third, we have a book called Move Well Secrets. It's when we first got started. I wrote a book. I think it was like 18 chapters, super easy to read. You can go to book.movenowu.com to get the book for free. You just pay for shipping. We'll send it out to you. We have a couple thousand copies out there in circulation. So we sent it all over the world. Cool, good read. And thanks for joining us. So I'm going to roll the outro, and we'll see you on the next one. Want more Move Now secrets? If so, then go get your copy of my best-selling book and watch my 30-minute behind-the-scenes Move Now demo. My book is called Move Well Secrets, and you can get your free copy at book.movenowu.com and watch the 30-minute demo of our exclusive doctor training portal at demo.movenowu.com. With these 2 resources, you'll find my top 22 secrets that we've used to build one of the smoothest running, results producing, and super profitable exercise departments within a chiropractic clinic in the entire profession.